Hi everyone, my name is Carlin, and today I'm going to go over the common mistakes I see with people trying to complete 1099s in QuickBooks and the misunderstanding kind of how the system works versus what is yielding when you go to file the 1099. So today, we're going to go ahead and get into it. So this is all fake data here, no worries, no confidential data being shared here. But I did want to point out one thing. So what I have noticed, especially from clients asking me questions or other colleagues asking me questions, is that people at the end of the year, of course, when you're going to run your or file your 1099s, you want to see a report of everything you want to file, right? So people are going over here to reports, and then they're going to get this 1099 contractor balance summary. So you can see how much you paid all your contractors and if logically they should get a 1099. So you have an idea before you go file the 1099 screen. So when running this report, you will want to make sure you run it in cash basis, and you want to make sure that you also select the correct date. So today's date is January 27th of 2026. 1099s are due, 1099 NECs are due very soon. So you will want to make sure you get that done, which is partially why I'm making this video for the last minute folks. Okay, so you see how this person here, even when you run it under the accrual basis, that 241.23 shows up here, right? And that's what we saw under vendors. However, there are other vendors here with amounts. The reason why they're not showing up on that report, for example, if you go to Robertson here, this vendor is not tracked for 1099. So it's very important that vendors that you at least think you may end up owing money to based off of them being contractors and do work on behalf of your company, you do want to make sure when setting up their vendor profile here that you scroll down and make sure you enable track for 1099, hit save. So now when we go back to rerun that report, you see how Robert shows up now? Being tracked for 1099. So actually, I want to make a correction. You can't, depending on your accounting method, you can run it in cash or accrual and based on the date. So we were doing it for last year, which is 2025. So you'll want to make sure you have this filter, but that person will now show up under 1099. Okay? So that's the first thing, that track for 1099. Then what I've also seen is people paying contractors and saying, hey, why is QuickBooks not recognizing that I'm paying them? Well, let's go back and let's see how you categorize their transactions. So to take a step back, because I know everyone here or that may be watching this video is not as advanced, when you go to your bank feed from to categorize your transactions, you are going to want to make sure that when you categorize them to the chart of accounts, that you make sure you indicate the payee here, right here. So for Robert and Associates, you see how the payee was selected when they categorize this to legal. They categorize this under accounting, which is a sub under legal and professional fees. Okay, so that's one note. You'll want to make sure that you add the payee so that it goes to their profile. The next note is you will want to look at the chart of accounts and make sure that those accounts you're categorizing the transactions to are expense accounts and not, or it could be cost of goods sold as well. But you want to make sure they're not like liability accounts or other accounts that don't usually go with 1099 tracking. It may get a little difficult for QuickBooks to recognize that you're trying to pay someone. So for example, here, legal and professional fees, if you categorize anything to accounting, bookkeeper, lawyer, the system will pick these up because logically those are pretty reasonable, right? So you will want to make sure you have that under control. So, good best practice that I always recommend for people is set this up accordingly. So, for example, you get a new vendor, right? You will want to always make sure that when you set their vendor profile up, and let's just go with the one we were looking at for 1099 tracking, when you set the vendor's profile up, it's best practice immediately before you do any work with them or when you plan to do work with them. Get a 1090, get a W-9 immediately from them to make sure here that you have all their business information, EIN, Social Security, whatever they indicate on that form. You'll want to put it here, set up their business name, all the information that they gave you. Do that from jump, okay? So that's best practice that way, and make sure you track for 1099. That way it's in the system. So as you go on along the year, categorize using the payee, putting them to the correct expense account, you know for certain that by the end of the year, your 1099 amounts are accurate and you can go in the system and file them. This test account, because we don't have real data, I can't go all the way with filing, but I will say, and QuickBooks has plenty of tutorials as well online for how to go through this process. But this video was more so what to do before getting to this process. I will briefly explain what the different filing methods here mean in case anyone is confused. I always use Prep My Own via QuickBooks. So if you did the steps that I just mentioned throughout the year, you will not have a problem here prepping your own via QuickBooks, and it's the low cost option. So if you see here, if you let QuickBooks do it with the AI, it will cost you more than if you just do it yourself. Also, the AI is trying to be smart, but it doesn't always know what you actually did. So it's best practice for you to know what you're prepping and you to have your book set up appropriately so you can prep these your own. So when you go to Prep My Own via QuickBooks, the most important thing before you can start is that you have the correct legal name and EIN or Social Security number of your business in here. It will gray this box out over here, and it will not let you continue. So you'll want to make sure you enter something there. I can't because this is a demo account, but you'll want to insert something there and then go ahead and it'll ask you, and that's where it'll ask you which one of your chart of accounts did you want to select so it can pull in the people that you paid under that chart of accounts. The last thing that I want to mention before closing this video out is that people are always going to that 1099 screen and saying, hey, I know I paid my vendors. Why are they not showing up there? Okay, here's an example. 1099 NECs only need to be sent out if you paid someone, let's say via ACH, cash, check, Zelle. Okay, if you paid these vendors via debit or credit card, QuickBooks will not populate that information to the 1099 screen. Those people will get a 1099K from that payment processor. So you only need to worry about sending 1099s to people that you paid via cash, check, ACH, Zelle, and people that were paid over $600. So notice that these vendors here that we checked for 1099 tracking that showed on that report of vendors we paid, these vendors will not show up when you go to file the 1099 because see how they were only paid $315 here. So you will want to look at all that information and make sure your understanding is correct as to what you expect to see when you get to the 1099 screen. Okay? I hope that was helpful. And if you have any questions, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe to this channel. I'll be doing a lot more of these videos. And then also throw your question in the comments and I will get to it. All right. Thanks for coming, everyone. And you have a wonderful day.